Hello, hello. Thank you very much. We have Joy Schechter on the piano. We have Daniel Ashkenazi on the bass. Ognjen Gotovčević, Ogi, on the alto sax. Andrija Gavrilović on trumpet. Thank you for coming out. That was an old tune of mine called 5-0. We're going to keep playing, but there's plenty of time to talk as well. This is going to be sort of in three parts. First part is with a live band. Second part is with some tracks, and then hopefully a nice dialogue that we'll have in here. And it's not said that it has to go exactly that way. In fact, if anybody having trouble seeing anybody at all, but if anybody has a question, yell it out, because I can't see you, and then we'll talk about that. But if not, then, and if there are no objections, we'll continue playing. So yeah, we'll play. Not a big fan of the changing altitude on the hi-hat during the song. That's all good. I guess I played the intro. Thank you very much. Once again, Joy Schechter on the piano, Daniel Eskenazi on the bass, Ogi Gotocevic on the sax, and Andrea Gavrilovic on the trumpet. Your colleagues, all students here. Anything that anybody would like to talk about at this point so we can give the horn players a bit of a break because they have some difficult things coming up, especially the last song we'll play as a band. But yeah, anyways, dialogue in a room where I can't really see anybody. Yeah, there is. Okay, cool. Hello.
Hello. Fantastic. Do you work with a record label? Do you have your own label? How do you get your music out into the world?
Well, these days, the concept of a label, unless they're making inordinate amounts of money, is almost perverted. I mean, it's perverted then as well. It's just that their artists stand to make a little bit of money. These days, independent labels function on a model that actually ends up having the artist give them money to do stuff for the artist. So I do it independently. I have to say that I've been fortunate enough with my first 3 albums to have had, sort of a renaissance. Well, I guess I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but Mecena, the concept of somebody funding the arts in the Renaissance, was, the rich families like the Medicis would fund art projects, be they related to usually to churches, but later on to fine arts. But in any event, the point is I had a person like that who actually helped, well, in the third album, actually 2 people who funded that third record, and 1 person who funded the first 2, and then I funded the last one myself, which I guess says that slowly I ended up having a little more money to invest into my own art. But yeah, the last record has been an independent project. And then, social media, publicity, I hired a publicist for the last record. Yeah, that's about it. Nothing, and then playing live. A benefactor, there you go. Thank you very much. Well done, yeah, benefactor. Yeah, I wonder if they use the Latin word for that in English, like Mecena. I don't know if that gets words, but benefactor. Thank you for that. English is not my first language. Anyways, yeah, that's it. Independently run. Oh, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you. On that note, is that a hand that's up? It's so hard to see. If it is, Matt, is that your hand? Oh, it was? Okay. that was good. We're going to play a song off of my third record. This is called My Lucky Number. And I guess a thing to note is that on the record, it's made up of two separate parts. My Lucky Number is the song that we'll all play. And then there's the outro to the track, which is called My Left Foot. Hopefully you'll figure out why. Thank you very much. So this will bring a close to the first part of the show, which is with the band. I will be very courteous to these lovely musicians after. This sounds like it's almost not on. So I feel so. There we go. No, it's cool. Yeah, we're going to play a tune called Djordjevic. And just to connect it to what I'm going to play later on when we start doing the tracks, take note, if it's of interest, that this song and the following song happen to be in the same meter. We'll figure out what the meter is. There's some prizes. Oh, yeah. Why don't we talk about the companies for a second, because they made it possible for me to be at Berklee on a Friday. Berklee makes it possible for me to be here on Mondays and Tuesdays. Anyways, Natal drums, Zildjian cymbals, Evans heads, Vic Firth sticks, and Aspirar, people who make these lovely pads and even lovelier orange shoes that I don't leave home without. Anyways, the next song is called Dunjir, and then later we'll have a little raffle on what the time signature is for this song and the first song I'll play with tracks. Thank you. Chapter on piano. Daniel Eskenazi on the bass. All Nico Tokčević on the sax. Andrea Gavrilovic on the trumpet. Thank you guys so much. You're free to hang out. Session not this Monday, but the next Monday.
Can I disconnect?
So the lovely perk about teaching at Berklee is that you get to play with young and talented musicians. The enthusiasm and perhaps the innocence of young age, which I remember so fondly when I was a kid here. And yeah, anything that anybody would like to ask or talk about before I continue playing? Because I'm having a pretty good time just playing, but I wouldn't mind making it educational as well if there's something that I could help with. What's that? Well, you know how that is. Man, I've just discovered if I put my hand right here, I can see everybody, which is really nice. Except it looks really silly. Well, it's the year-old adage: work, some talent, not enough talent, so more work than talent, actually. And but it's worked well in the sense that while I did all the work, I actually accidentally became a musician, which I'm very grateful for. I mean, I think the drums get a bad name, but I think it's, it can be pervasive across the spectrum of instruments. I guess, guitarists also get a bad name for this, but the indulgence and overindulgence over music. I mean, I've always wanted to, have my band compose music, but I also wanted to be a drummer. But, having begun with looking at people and listening to people who had tremendous physical capability, like technique on the instrument, I desired that, so I worked a lot to get that. But then I also at some point realized that it wasn't the only game in town. So luckily, and also because I had good mentors, I was directed towards really good and worthwhile music, which eventually helped me become not just a drummer, but a musician who, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being just a drummer, but in comparison with a musician who plays the drums or any other instrument, as opposed to just an instrumentalist, I guess the word just is being used justly. We should all be musicians first, and then, exponents of music on any particular instrument. Does that answer your question, Matt? That was great. Anybody else have a question or a comment? Or yeah.
Hey, Marko, what's up?
And is that Carlos? It is, yeah.
That's me.
Cool, yeah. I don't have to see you. I know your voice.
Yeah, no, first of all, it was killing, and yeah.
Thank you.
So it sounds amazing. I wanted to ask, like, how do you internalize all the time signatures, and how do you use that as a foundation to kind of go over the bar line and go all over the without getting lost?
Sure. Well, without getting lost being the operative phrase there. And internalizing is the operative phrase as well. Being able to sing a line to myself while we talked about that in our lessons a few years, well, is it a few years ago? Not a few years, but a year and a half ago, right? Yeah. The idea of being able to vocalize. So, for example, this last tune, which I won't reveal the time signature because then we'll go through the other tune that I have on tracks, and then we'll compare and contrast. I think it will be interesting because they're in the same time signature. Sometimes people have this schematic idea that, if it's a time signature, everything sounds the same in a particular signature. That couldn't be further from the truth, especially when it gets to odd meters. Maybe because in the Western world, when there's a 7, it's always, as opposed to the 7 that we just played, which is totally different. And there's so many other ways to play a 7. So anyways, we'll get to that. But back to Carlos's question. So the line that was the bass line for the previous tune. I mean, I can sing that to myself, and I can play over that. So let's see if I become a vocalist. Destroy a mic stand. almost there. So, instead of, thank you. Lovely. Thanks. So, it gets labor intensive just because this bass line never stops. So eventually I'm starting to gasp for breath. But you know, hopefully that was pretty clear. Like I was singing the line, and then I was playing all kinds of stuff over it, whether it was stuff that goes directly with it, or stuff that, for example, like playing a, I don't know, 5-note grouping. So I'll replace my vocal with a bass drum. You know, so just in order not to sing too much. But, you know, I internalize this and then I sing it to myself. I don't have to sing it out loud. I do it initially just to make sure that I'm there, and then I record it. And then I just internalize and play it on my internal hi-fi audio system and then try stuff. And that's basically it, you know. And I do this regardless of, and irrespective of the meter. This works fine in 4/4 as well. You know, singing a line and then playing over it. And the whole idea is that you're not counting up and down the measure. You're just singing the measure that defines the rhythm, and then you play around and see what you can do creatively. And that's it. That's really it. Anything else before I play a little bit more? Andrea Bertesi, where? How? Behind the column. Roman style, yeah. Yeah, yes, indeed. Oh, yeah.
I was interested in your approach to the composition of your songs rather than, I mean,
Uh-huh.
the
Sure.
The drumming is part of it, right? But how does the drumming affect the composition, and how the composition affects the drum?
Well, the drums are usually the last thing in the process. So sometimes I have a song and I bring it to the band and I still don't really know exactly what I'm going to play. The cool thing about it is as we play and play live, I get different kinds of ideas. And some of them I can show later, like ways that certain songs have grown on the drums and haven't really grown much as songs because they're just what they are. But, you know, what changes is how different the people who play the songs get within a year or 2 years. I mean, some songs, like Dunjer, that last song we played, that's the first song I wrote after I came back to Berklee. I was gigging with a reggae band and touring when I was 18, and I had this music in my head, and I wanted to come back to Berklee and play more of the stuff that I wanted to play. Although the reggae band was an incredible experience. I mean, it was my first touring, went all over the country, opened up for every reggae band you can imagine. So it was really, really a great reggae education, and then just education in terms of what it's like to be on the road, what it's like to be a touring musician. But anyways, I wanted to come back to Berklee, practice my drums, write all this music that I had in my head. So this is the first bass line that was kind of milling about my head after all the stuff that I wrote while I was at Berklee. And this was something that I wrote music while I was a student and played it in recitals, but that stuff just sort of fell by the wayside. So beginning with this tune, is that era that now lasts, well, almost, not 30 years, but 27, 28 years of my band Sveti, and we had our first show at the BPC and all that. So in any event, how does the music affect the drums? Well, the drums just grow into the music, because being a drummer, like I'm not worried about that. I'll worry about the melodies, the harmony, what people are going to play, and then I don't know what to play until we start playing together, and I try to figure it out. As for how the drums influence the music, it's more like I don't really separate myself as a drummer and as a band leader, I guess, in the sense that I'm the one responsible for what happens on the bandstand when it's my music and it's under my name or my band's name. I guess I feel like I'm the conductor of sorts, and just hoping that all the parts will grow together into something that I enjoy, that everybody playing it enjoys, and then consequently everybody listening to it enjoys. There it is. Okay, I'm gonna play some stuff. What is it? 4 tracks. How are we doing on time, by the way? I just need to know. 2:01. Oh, great. I have just enough time to do what I wanted to do. So I'm going to play a tune off of my last record. This is called Which Way Is Down? And like I said, it's the same time signature as the song that we just played, and hopefully you'll figure it out. Thank you. So now maybe we can talk about time signatures a little bit. Because I guess it said on that flyer that it's going to be odd meters and polyrhythms. So far it's been a concert. And it's been enjoyable, of course. But yeah, so anybody meter for this one?
9/8.
No? 17. Oh, okay, too many people know. So the other one too. Who said 17? I like the answer. But given that you're the loudest one to yell it out, we'll give you something that'll quiet things down. Why don't you grab yourself one of these aspirar pads? Absolutely. So, hey, could somebody take a picture of this? And please take some more pictures because I'll need it for the sponsors. Why don't you, what's your name? Sergio, come on over. Bueno, vamos a tomar una foto juntos con el pad de aspirar. Just so the good people in China see that the pad got a new owner. I don't need the mic. Cool. Alrighty. So somebody's calling me. Busy. In any event, so yeah, quite different, right? Whereas the first 17 that I played was do 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 do. So if we really got all numbery about it, it's two phrases of 7, da 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 da, and a lone 3 in the end. Do 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 do. Whereas this other thing, well, actually, can somebody tell me? That was pretty good. Yeah, I like that. 7 plus 10 makes sense to me. Yeah, and the 10 is 3 3 2 2. So 2 2 3. 3 3 2 2. And then the possibilities for cross-pollinating those two things. In fact, the reason why I mentioned this cross-pollination, moving things around in this way, is I play with Matt Garrison quite a bit. We have a band called the Takeoff Collective. But back in the day, we were playing and the Takeoff Collective is a totally improvised unit. It's Ole Matheson, Matt Garrison, and myself. We start, we take off, and about an hour later, we land, hopefully. And there's no preconceived music. It's just we open up, we play, interact, and that's the concept. So it's free and open. But I was doing some gigs with Matt of his music, and he played me a 9/4 thing, and it was squirmy, so to speak. The line was, it went around the bar. So initially I couldn't really hear it very well, but I made do with a 9/8 beat that I have been playing as a kid, or hearing as a kid in Serbia. And playing that, I was telling him I'm not hearing the line yet, but I can play this until I find my way around it. So I almost put myself on autopilot playing that 9, listening to the bass line until I could actually sing it competently myself. And then all of a sudden, so I had some reference in order not to just feel like I'm floating and lost, like Carlos said, without getting lost, exactly. So having reference in a multitude of time signatures helps in assimilating new ones or new interpretations of things you already know. So yeah, I guess that made some sort of a point, I hope. Anything else that anybody wants to ask before I play some more tracks? And this, like I said, this was from my latest record, so that was Desmond White and Bobby Avey on piano that you heard on this. And then the following tracks, the next 3 tracks are just my tunes that Berk, the bass player, produced and just did these tracks for me to play along with, like a -1. So the only musician you'll hear on those is Berk beside myself on the drums. There's one that Andrea did for this, but we already played that tune, so I'm not gonna do it again. Anyways, any questions, or can I play more? Play. Okay, yeah, I'm down with that. So I'll play another very old tune. This is called We'll See. So it's about the same time period as Dunjer. So these are the hits in a parallel universe. They're like top 9.
39. One, two, three, 2, 2, 3.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, like I said, that's an old hit. Parallel Universe, top 39. Maybe how this grew over time. There's one thing that I don't know if you noticed or not, but so I'm playing in 3. It's a pretty simple groove with a backbeat on B3. But one thing that occurred to me a long time ago, as I was playing and developing music, I was practicing and I came up with this little thing, and then I'll show you how the little thing that I'm about to show you developed into the little thing that you might have noticed while I was playing the tune. So I was practicing back when I moved to New York. I was teaching at this place called the Long Island Drum Center, so I would get there before my lessons and I would shed. It was really nice conditions, like, a studio without students, so you can just shed for a while. Just kidding. I love teaching. But it's nice to practice as well. So in any event, I would practice before my lessons so I could feel really good about the entire day. And I came up with this little ditty. So in 3, and the first thing that I was playing was I wasn't playing that, but that's where the downbeat is. So these are 16th notes in groups of 3. So then, to make the beat a little more obvious, I played the quarter note. But instead of just playing, I actually added the second 16th note to the quarter note. And I added a melody, which is a kind of a 2-part melody, 2-beat melody. So even though we're in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, this melody by itself, if I wasn't telling you anything about this, would suggest there's 1, 2, 1, 2, right? So now we put these things together. So I thought, well, that sounds interesting, but my left foot is not doing anything. What could my left foot do? So I figured that maybe I could play around with the idea of open and closed hi-hat. So the first thing I did, I think, was just to play in 2. I said, okay, that sounds all right, but what if I try for a little bit, something a little more intricate, challenging? So I decided that maybe since I can do splashes and closed sounds in groups of 2, maybe if I did a splash and a couple of closed sounds, I would get a grouping of 3. And then if I have 2s and 3s, I have everything. So then, so basically, I can play 2s or 3s, or even I didn't play any 4s. Anyway, so 2s, 3s, 4s, and then combinations of 2s and 3s. So then it occurred to me with and this goes back to Andrea's question of how things develop in the drums. So initially, when I wrote this tune, We'll See, the thing in 3 that I just played, I just played the regular beat and maybe 8th notes. I've given up on playing the 8th notes on the hi-hat. I don't do that anymore. Usually if I do something, it would be the upbeats, but then I also, from time to time, I let my hi-hat wander. So I don't know if you heard that while I was playing through the track, but I did do a little bit of this where the hi-hat played in 5 and 7. So anyways, yeah, these little things are interesting, intricate, challenging, musical, sound good, fun. Yeah. Right? Yeah, I do. All right, so how about I play some more? I wasn't gonna play this, but I'm gonna play one more thing from my last record. This is called 10 Large Serbians. It's a fun tune. I mean, it gives away the signature, but nevertheless, so no questions, no quizzes, just loads of fun. I love those reactions. They're funny. Should I play more? Okay, okay, cool. What time? 2:25. Cool. My bus is at 4. Let's see. So what do I? I don't think I need the stand anymore. Thank you, Stan. So what do we have left? Yeah, okay. Reggae? Yeah, well, why not? Why not? I don't have any tracks, but I'd be delighted to talk about reggae. I mean, since I did mention the Tribulations, like I said, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience in the sense that I was the youngest member of the band at 18. The oldest member of the band was 21. So we were a bunch of kids there was a core of the band that was from Ithaca, New York, the bass player and the two singers. And after they graduated high school, they moved to Boston. The bass player came to Berklee, and the two singers went to Tufts and Northeastern, respectively. And their intention was to go to college in the same town and continue the band. So the bass player being the sort of the business brain of the whole operation, he came to Berklee. He was majoring in music business. He was the one that booked the tours and everything. He got the band. And the funny thing about the band is I wasn't playing in the Boston band originally. It was my friend Tom Schmidt, not to be confused with Tom who teaches classical percussion here. I thought that it might have been the same Tom when I saw that name, but it's not. Tom teaching here is way younger than Tom Schmidt. In any event, Tom played with a band, and the really funny thing, remember how I said that I wanted to, after playing with a band for a couple of years, I recorded the first album and all that, I wanted to come back to Boston and pursue my music and other musical opportunities here in Boston, which didn't materialize, like playing in Carolina Brandis's band. She had her band Red and Black always had the best musicians, and when I came back to Boston, I ended up walking in the shoes of Dan Reeser, who, if you haven't heard of Dan Reeser, is a great drummer. He played on Nora Jones's record and stuff like that, but he was just great all-around player. And Kurt Rosenwinkel played in the band, Matt Garrison, Uriah Rohn, Pete Adams, Sten Hostfeld. I mean, it was, really, really great musicians. Chris Cheek played in Carolina's band, and she invited me to play in the band after I got off the road. So that was, I loved that. I knew that I made the right decision to leave the Tribulations and come back to Boston. In any event, the point is that at some point, Tom Schmidt, who was playing with the Tribulations, said that he wanted to come back to Berklee and do more of what Marko is doing, because I just started playing with a lot of people at Berklee and recording and stuff like that. So he left the band, and I ended up joining the band, and I had a great time for 2 years, and then I wanted to go back and do what Tom Schmidt was doing at Berklee, just get it. So how things work out in circles. In any event, we started playing. I didn't know anything about reggae besides that it was a word. I wasn't even sure that it was a style of music. But in the 2 years that I played with the Tribulations, we were lucky enough to have a manager who was the owner of a big club out in the Hamptons on Long Island. And that club brought everybody you could possibly think of in the world of reggae to perform there. So Ziggy Marley, we opened up for Ziggy Marley twice. We opened up for the Wailers, Third World, Steel Pulse, Chris Coomey, huh? Good vibe. Sophia George, Black Uhuru, the list goes on. Yeah, I mean, I can't. Shinehead, Ika Mouse. So anyways, Alpha Blondy. If you haven't heard Alpha Blondy, he's one of those rare, not Jamaican, but African reggae artists, and who came to prominence back, in the 80s. And he recorded some records with the actual Wailers, and Bob Marley's band. And my biggest sin was that the night that we opened up for Alpha Blondy, I was into Electric Band, Chick Corea, all that stuff. I fell asleep backstage when they were playing, and then redeemed myself by purchasing many of their records after I made that cardinal sin, because they were really a tremendous band. So anyways, that's the reggae story. But now, obviously, I've developed a fondness for the music, and my favorite drummer is Steve Grizzly Nesbitt, although I love just about any drummer who plays reggae. It kind of kills me. But the drummer for Steel Pulse, he had some great inventive beats. So maybe I'll try to remember some of those and show you. best drum fill ever in the world, in the tune called Who Responsible. And it's great that the song is called Who Responsible. It's such an easy search on YouTube. Nobody says Who Responsible. Who is responsible? No, Who Responsible on the fill, ends on the one, and goes a little something like this. When you hear that, it just knocks you out of your seat. You're like, wow, did that really happen? And you go back. Let's see, what else? The rockers beat. Oh, yeah. Or like the Sly and Robbie. Or the, the Exodus. With that mystery. What is it? It's triplets? No, it's not 16 notes. I don't know. But what's important is to play those two eighth notes right before that little thingy. I remember back when the channel. Oh, here we go. I'll use it. Don't feel left out. I even took the little thing that attaches. So it's never going back on the stand. In any event, back at the channel, which used to be a club on Boston's waterfront, Boston and Water, Bellarine and Water. We played with Black Uhuru, and their drummer, Orangutan, was showing me the little triplet, which is different than what I was just doing. But it was so funny, the terminology that he was using, which I have to say that I don't remember. None of it made any sense except when he played. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. So it doesn't matter what people tell you or try to teach you. Listen to what they're doing. If you like it, you'll get it. Anyways, so much for the reggae. More stuff to play. Unless there are more questions.
Yeah, I had one.
Please.
For
Tin.
the rocker beat, were you doing like a
Oh no.
like a rough type thing at the end?
I was, yeah, like a little two-handed. So I would put I would buzz both hands at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also this Ika Mouse tune called Peeny Wally, which is hilarious. He's like, riding on my bicycle, got knocked out by a motorcycle, because he was looking at the sights. So anyways, that tune has this kind of a rocker beat, again, two-handed, not one-handed. But yeah, I mean, check out, Grizzly, check out Styley Scott from the Roots Radix, check out the band called Oswald. I didn't mention them. We didn't open for them. Maybe that's why I didn't mention them, but they're an incredible English band. So Oswald and Steel Pulse are from England. They're not, they're Jamaican people, but living in England, and they came to prominence in the 80s. And there was the Sunsplash 1981, this big festival in Jamaica where everybody cuts their teeth on the scene and gets a chance or doesn't get a chance to be seen by a lot of people. There was a lot of doubt about the English bands coming in, but I watched this in the library numerous times when I was a student here. Sunsplash 1981, a tribute to Robert Nesta Marley, because it was the year after he was killed, and Steel Pulse plays there for the first time in Jamaica, and it's just unbelievable. I mean, just thinking about it gives me chills. I highly recommend it. So yeah, now I'm going to play two more things. So I'm going to play this tune called Hips, and then I'll end with the last tune.
1, 2.
So a funny thing happened on the way into the solo. Right, so there's this phrase, obviously I've heard these tracks for a while, I've been playing with them, so it occurred to me that I might want to play along to that first da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, a little phrase that Petter played on the keyboard. So the first time around, it didn't quite work out. Second time around, it worked out great. The point is, sometimes it's not a bad thing to revisit. If you feel like could have gone better, and you still feel like the flow is there, even though it didn't go as planned, you come back and you kind of, there's, again, my English fails me. Overiška. So, and I won't go into detail of what that means, but let's say it just finished. It's a way of finishing a job. Yeah. So, anyways, something I got from listening to Jack DeJohnette. In his explorations, it's not uncommon that things, become a little topsy-turvy. But inevitably, if something like that should happen, his return is always so strong that you forgot about, the mishap. So it's just an interesting thing to think about. If something didn't go quite as planned, as long as you're in the musical flow, there's always a way to sort of get it back, if that makes any sense. So we're coming up on the last tune. Before I close the proceedings, I want to see if anybody wants to ask anything or... Yes, please. Sure, of course. The idea is, oh, and I have a double pedal here. Okay, so I forgot about that, but maybe interesting to use it as well. So the idea is something that my teacher Miroslav Karlovic saw on a Steve Gadd video, and then later on I saw it as well. And all it is what's, I guess, popularly called or popularly known as the heel-toe technique. But there's some misconceptions, I think, about it, and I think the main one is that when people do it, they tend to hover and tend to have the focal point way closer to the toes, which ends up not getting a very strong and even sound. When I do it, I make sure I ground my heel at the tail end of the first stroke. And then from there, I go into a regular heel down stroke. And that enables me to... I only slide when it gets too fast. So there are no sliding. Like there's no sliding. It's still just up and down. It becomes a slide when I'm doing doubles or triples. Just like a helicopter can land straight, but a jet plane needs a runway. It's a way to kind of, cushion the impact and glide a little bit before stopping. Incidentally, yesterday, I started teaching at the collective. A student named Djordjevic. Does anybody remember that name? Because he was here at Berklee, apparently. I never met him here, but what he does with the bass drum is, it sounds a little bit like this. That's how fast. Maybe even faster than that. With one bass drum, it's pretty insane. So I'm gonna take some lessons from him when he comes back next Thursday. So, but he's using kind of a similar thing. So I'm gonna pick his brain a little bit about moving up in the world as far as that goes. I haven't heard anybody do it yet. So. Maybe I'm not following enough. Maybe there are people who are doing it. But anyways, that's the idea. I've managed to teach my left foot to do a similar thing. It's nowhere near as solid. But if I just let it follow the right foot, I can get an interesting roll effect from the double bass, even though I don't really consider myself a double bass player. Yeah. What else? Well, the only other thing that's interesting about the feet is the left foot on the hi-hat. So the only part of the drum set that does not offer a rebound. So what I do there is I use a tier system. So without, this is all from below the knee. The fact that my knee is up is just because it's connected, by the fibula and tibula to my ankle. But it's my ankle that's raised, and I'm not using any power from above the knee. And so then using this platform of being really high up, I descend, and I get 3 strokes. Of course, easier for just 2 strokes. And I use a small hi-hat, which really helps. It's tighter and easier to move. That's it, as far as the feet goes. Anything else before we close it up by playing the last number? Yes, Tim.
How do you stay loose while you're playing really intense?
I'm still not entirely satisfied with that aspect of my playing, but I try to practice in a way that promotes relaxation, right? So, and I have this thing that I say, and I'm relatively sure about this, but I've never done it as a thought experiment. But I think that if medical professionals came in with all of the apparatus to check my vital signs, those times when I'm practicing very relaxed and breathing evenly and just trying to be as loose and relaxed as possible, they would find me at my healthiest. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to preserve that feeling that I get in practice and carry it on to the bandstand. It's not entirely possible because there's so much more at stake on the bandstand. Plus there's an emotional involvement of the kind that you don't necessarily always have in the practice room. I mean, if I get emotionally involved with what I'm practicing, then some of that relaxation falls by the wayside. But the idea is to promote that kind of thinking in practice, and hopefully a lot of it will translate, to the stage. So we'll keep working on that. Anything else before I play the last tune? May I play the last tune? Yeah. Okay. Here it is. So I saved the hardest for last.
Since I had it, I always like doing this, since I don't play double bass very often. When I have it, I like making thunder noise.
That's the range.